I never thought a simple bowl of chocolate rice porridge would change the way my entire neighborhood in Russia looked at breakfast, kindness, and even each other. If someone had told me that before flying to the Philippines, I would have laughed. Russians are serious about two things: their winters and their food. And when it comes to food, my country has always had its strong beliefs. Porridge should be savory, mornings should be quiet, and chocolate belongs in candy bars, not in pots. So imagine the cultural earthquake that happened when I, a woman who couldn't even cook properly, returned from the Philippines carrying nothing but a suitcase full of instant Champorado packets, dried cacao tablea, and a heart full of stories I couldn't quite explain. It started in Manila, or rather, in the small house of a Filipino family who welcomed me like a long-lost cousin. Their place wasn't big. It wasn't modern. But when I walked inside, it felt like stepping into the center of the sun. Warm, loud, alive. Nothing like Russia-esque winter apartments where neighbors close their doors softly and conversations echo only behind thick walls. I arrived on a rainy morning. The sky was soft gray, the kind that made the world look gentle even through jet lag. The grandmother of the house, everyone called her Lola, touched my cheek the moment I entered. "You are too thin," she declared, even though I was perfectly average. "Sit. Eat." I barely had time to set down my bag before she placed a steaming bowl of something dark brown in front of me. It looked strange, like chocolate soup mixed with rice. And the smell, it was warm chocolate, yes, but also something deeper, almost earthy. I asked what it was. "Champorado," the youngest daughter said with a smile that could have powered all the streetlights in Manila. "Chocolate rice porridge. You eat it when rain is like this. Makes your heart feel okay." In Russia, we don't have comfort food when it rains. We don't have comfort food for weather. We just have weather. And porridge, it's always salty, buttered, practical. So this sweet, chocolatey porridge confused my brain before it impressed it. I took my first spoonful and everything inside me paused, like a movie scene where the music fades out. It was simple but impossibly comforting. Soft, warm, sweet, and somehow nostalgic, despite being something entirely new. The chocolate wasn't like the ones we melt in Russia. It tasted like the earth after rain, like stories, like the sound of people laughing while cooking. I finished the entire bowl before anyone else did. I spent months in the Philippines after that trip, learning not just about Champorado, but about the country itself. I learned that Filipinos find excuses to feed you. That rain is never just rain. It's a chance to slow down. That umbrellas are optional, but laughter is not. I learned that warmth isn't a temperature, but a way of living. Every time it rained, Lola made champorado. And every time she'd watch me with this proud sparkle in her eyes, like she had discovered something inside me that I didn't know existed. "You eat like a Filipino already," she'd say. And maybe I did. Or maybe I wanted to. When it was time to leave, she pressed two things into my hands: a bag of tablea wrapped in old newspaper, and a small note that said, "Food is memory. Share good memories." I didn't cry until my plane took off. Returning to Russia felt like diving into cold water. The airport was quiet. The sky was silver. And the people walked fast with their collars raised as if emotions were gusts of wind they wanted to avoid. I missed the chaos of Manila. I missed jeepneys honking. I missed kids yelling, "Ate, ate," even though I never understood why they called me that. And I missed Champorado most during the first winter storm that arrived 3 days after I got home. Russia in deep winter feels heavy. The snow is beautiful, but it's heavy. The silence is peaceful, but it's heavy. And coming home to an empty apartment after months of being surrounded by laughter felt heavier still. So I opened the bag Lola gave me. The tablea smelled exactly like her house. Like morning, like rain, like family. The recipe was simple enough: rice, water, tablea, sugar. But the moment I placed the pot on the stove, memories flooded into my kitchen like ghosts returning home. I heard the laughter of the kids, the clinking of spoons, the voice of Lola yelling, "Don't burn it, huh?" Even though she wasn't there. When it finished cooking, I sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket, watching snow fall like tiny pieces of a quiet world. I took one spoonful, and everything inside me softened. And that was when my neighbor knocked on the door. Her name was Lyudmila. She lived exactly one floor below mine and was known for two things: wearing bright lipstick even in winter and being the unofficial gossip queen of the entire building. Normally, she'd never visit anyone in Ink's apartment unless something was wrong, like a leaking pipe or a missing cat. But today, she stood in my doorway with a strange expression, part curiosity and part fear. "What is that smell?" she asked in Russian, sniffing the air. "It smells like dessert, but also like breakfast." "It's champorado," I said. She blinked. What?" "Chocolate porridge," I explained. Her face twisted. "Chocolate? In porridge?" To her, it was like saying beetroot in ice cream. "Do you want to try some?" I asked without thinking. She hesitated, then stepped inside. Russians may act serious, but curiosity is our weakness. She took one spoonful. Her eyes widened. "This is strange," she whispered, "but also warm and comforting and too sweet, but also perfect." She looked at me as if I had performed witchcraft. For the next 5 minutes, she ate in complete silence. Then she sighed deeply and said something I never expected to hear from her. "I feel lighter." She left after finishing the bowl, claiming she needed to walk off the feelings. The next morning, someone else knocked. It was Pavel from the 4th floor, the man with the mustache so thick it had its own personality. He smelled the aroma from the hallway, he said. He wanted to inspect this suspicious food. After all, Russians are allergic to sweetness during breakfast. But he tried a spoonful, frowned, tried another, frowned again, then quietly asked, "Do you have more?" And after him came a teenage boy who had been walking his dog and smelled chocolate in the hallway. Then the old woman who always scolded kids for being noisy. Then the shy girl who lived 2 doors down and rarely spoke to anyone. All of them came knocking, asking the same question. "What is that smell?" By the end of the week, I had fed half the building, and then things got weird. One morning, I woke up to the sound of tapping, not knocking, tapping, rhythmic and slow. I opened my door to find a small line of neighbors waiting with bowls. They had brought their own bowls, ceramic, metal, plastic, because Russia has an unspoken rule. If you're going somewhere that gives food, bring a bowl. "Is today Champorado Day?" asked the old woman. I didn't know there was a Champorado Day, but apparently they had all decided there should be one. It became a weekly routine. Every Saturday morning, snow would be falling, the building would be nearly silent, and then, always, there would be that knock. "Are we having champorado?" "Did you make the chocolate porridge?" "Do you need help stirring?" Some even brought ingredients: sugar, milk, rice. One lady showed up with a giant chocolate bar because she thought it was the same as tablea. It wasn't, but we used it anyway for fun. And slowly, something incredible happened. People who never talked to each other started eating together. The man who always looked angry shared stories about his childhood. The girl from the 2nd floor started laughing for the first time. Neighbors who had lived next to each other for 10 years finally learned each other's names. Champorado didn't just feed them, it melted walls, the emotional kind. But the moment that changed everything happened on a freezing morning in late January, when the temperature dropped so low that even the sky looked pale. I was stirring the pot in my kitchen when there was a frantic knocking on my door. Fast, loud, panicked. It was little Masha from the 3rd floor. She was crying, shivering, clutching her gloves. "My papa is sick," she said between sobs. "He won't get up. He feels very cold." I ran down the stairs with her. Her father was lying on the couch, wrapped in blankets, teeth chattering. He wasn't dying, just suffering from Russia's cruel winter flu. But the house felt so cold, so lonely, like the air itself had stopped caring. I brought him some champorado, not because it was medicine, but because it was the only warm thing I had. He ate slowly at first, unsure, then faster. Then he exhaled deeply, like his chest had finally remembered how to breathe properly. Then he whispered something that made my throat tighten. "It reminds me of my mother." And that was when I realized something important. Champorado wasn't magic because it tasted good. It was magic because it carried warmth, the kind people forget exists. especially in places where winters are long and hearts grow tired. From that day on, Champorado became more than a snack in our building. It became a ritual of care. People brought blankets for each other. They shared stories, problems, joys. And we started something even crazier. Every Saturday, after eating, we would gather in the hallway and talk. Sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for 2 hours. And once, in the middle of a snowstorm, people even danced. Yes, danced. All because of a chocolate rice porridge born thousands of kilometers away. But the real chaos started when one of my neighbors posted a picture online. A small bowl of champorado, steam rising beautifully, Russian snow in the background. The caption said, "Filipino comfort food saved our building from winter depression." Within hours, thousands of Russians started commenting, "What is this chocolate porridge? Where can we buy it? Is this legal? Can you ship some?" And then, the unthinkable happened. A local news station contacted me. They wanted to feature the story of the Russian woman who brought Filipino warmth to Siberia. When the local news station called me, I honestly thought someone was pranking me. Russians aren't exactly known for being obsessed with sweet porridge, and yet here they were asking if they could send a camera crew to my building, my very cold, very ordinary Soviet-style building, to film Champorado. I tried to refuse. I said it was just food, but the woman on the phone insisted. "We heard it brought neighbors together," she said, "and with winter this harsh, people need warmth." The words felt like déjà vu. Warmth. The same word Lola had used many times in the Philippines, the warmth that had nothing to do with the weather. So I said yes. When the camera crew arrived, the hallway was already full of people. I didn't ask anyone to be there, they just showed up. Some brought flowers for the reporters, some wore their best winter coats. One old man even brought his balalaika, because he said, Filipinos love music. He wasn't wrong. The reporters filmed everything, the pot on the stove, the smell of chocolate drifting through the hallway, neighbors laughing as they held their bowls like excited children. They interviewed me, though I was shaking the whole time, not because I was nervous, but because Russian apartments are cold and I forgot to turn off the kitchen window. "What inspired you to bring this dish home?" they asked. I could have said something poetic, something dramatic, but I just told the truth. "I missed my Filipino family," I said. "I missed how they made food feel like home, so I tried to bring a small piece of that warmth here." The reporter smiled gently. "And did it work?" I looked around at the neighbors, people who used to ignore each other, now laughing as chocolate dripped onto their scarves, and I felt my throat tighten. "It worked," I whispered. That night, our building was on television, and by morning, everything was different. My phone exploded with messages. Friends, strangers, distant relatives. The building intercom buzzed every hour, and when I opened my front door, there were boxes. Not one box, dozens. Some had sugar, some had rice, some had chocolate bars of questionable quality. One even had a note that said, "Please teach us to make champa, the chocolate thing." Apparently, champorado was too difficult for some Russians to pronounce. Then came the message that changed everything. A Filipino community group in Moscow reached out. They said they saw my story and wanted to meet. I was terrified. Filipinos were known for being cheerful, friendly, and welcoming. Russians, meanwhile, were known for being serious, anxious, and slightly suspicious of everything, including themselves. I worried they'd think I was ruining their beloved dish. I worried they'd say, "That's not real champorado." But they didn't. They welcomed me like family. When I arrived at their community center, I heard laughter before I even touched the door. Inside, colorful banderitas hung across the ceiling. The smell of adobo, pancit, and sinigang filled the room. It felt like stepping into the Philippines all over again. A man approached me first. He had the warmest smile I had ever seen. "You're the Champorado girl?" he asked. I guess," I said, feeling shy. He laughed, clapped me on the back, and called out, "Guys, the Russian who made Russia eat champorado is here." Everyone cheered. They served me food, more food than I could ever eat. Someone even handed me a plate of puto to balance the sweetness, they said. They told me stories of their own winters, their families back home, their struggles adjusting to Russian cold and Russian faces that always looked angry even when they were in tea. Later, the community leader approached me. "You know," she said softly, "Champorado is simple, but the meaning behind it isn't. It's a symbol of comfort, of rainy mornings, of family, and you brought that to people who needed it." I felt tears sting my eyes. I didn't know I needed to hear that. Then she handed me something, a large box wrapped in brown paper. "For you," she said, "from the Filipino community." When I unwrapped it, I gasped. It was filled with tablea, real Filipino tablea, not the sugary chocolate bars Russians kept sending me, not the cheap cocoa powder I resorted to when supplies ran low. This was the real thing. Round, earthy, rich-smelling cacao tablets. "We heard you were running out," she said, "and champorado must be made with love and with good tablea." I hugged her. I hugged everyone. It was embarrassing, but it felt right. When I returned home with the giant box, my neighbors celebrated like I had won the Olympics. "Finally," they cheered. "Real ingredients for our Saturdays." And so, with real tablea, our weekly Champorado gatherings became even more meaningful. More people came, people from other buildings, people from across town, and soon, people from other cities. Then Russia did what Russia does best, turn something small into something spectacularly dramatic. A popular Russian food vlogger contacted me. His channel had millions of subscribers, and he wanted to film a video titled, "Trying Filipino Champorado for the First Time. Russia Isn't Ready." I agreed, but only on one condition. He had to come to the building and eat with everyone. He arrived with lights, cameras, and a face that screamed, "I am skeptical but curious." When he took his first spoonful, he froze. He stared at the bowl like it had personally changed his destiny. Then he said loudly, "This is wrong. Everything about this is wrong. But somehow it is perfect." The video went viral overnight. People started making champorado in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, in Siberia, in towns so small they didn't even have chocolate until now. Parents fed it to their kids. Cafes started serving Russian-style champorado, which was absolutely not champorado, but at least they were trying. One restaurant even put it on their menu as Filipino winter pudding, which made every Filipino roll their eyes but also feel weirdly proud. But the biggest surprise came next. A Russian culinary school reached out to me. They wanted me to teach a class, me, someone who could barely cook anything that wasn't champorado. When I arrived, the students were already gathered, chefs in white jackets, arms crossed, faces serious. Russian chefs take food personally, and sweet porridge was almost an insult to their training. "This is Filipino food?" one asked. "Yes," I said nervously. "And you brought it here?" another asked. "Yes. And now, we learn it?" "Yes." Silence. Then the head chef nodded. "Good. Begin." Teaching them was chaos. Someone burned the rice. Someone added salt instead of sugar. Someone dropped tablea on the floor and cried. Someone tried to add vodka, for Russian flavor. I confiscated the vodka, but by the end, they all had one perfect bowl each, and something miraculous happened. They smiled. Some even cried. One whispered, "It feels like childhood, but different somehow." Another said, "It is humble, like a hug." The head chef took a spoonful, closed his eyes and murmured, "It tastes like homesickness, but also like coming home." I never forgot that line. Word spread even more. Suddenly, champorado wasn't just a dish. It was a symbol, a soft rebellion against cold winters and colder emotions. A small bowl of warmth that reminded Russians that vulnerability wasn't weakness. Then, one snowy morning, something happened that flipped my entire world upside down. A letter arrived, stamped, official, from the Philippine Embassy in Moscow. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was an invitation. They wanted me to attend an event celebrating Filipino-Russian cultural friendship. They said they had heard about what I had done. They said they wanted to honor the way I brought Filipino comfort food into Russian hearts. My knees almost buckled. On the day of the event, I arrived wearing the warmest dress I owned. The embassy building was beautiful, full of bright colors, traditional decorations, and the familiar smell of Filipino food that I missed every day. When I stepped inside, I froze, because there, standing in the middle of the hall, was the last person I expected to see. It was Lola. The same Lola who fed me champorado on my first rainy day in Manila. The same Lola who told me, "Share good memories." She looked exactly the same, except maybe a bit smaller. Or maybe I just felt bigger from carrying all the memories she had given me. She looked at me. I looked at her. And then she gave me the same scolding expression she always did. "You got thinner again." I laughed and ran to hug her. "How are you here?" I asked. "Embassy invited me," she said proudly. "They said I am the original supplier of warm hearts." I cried, not soft tears, the embarrassing kind. The ambassador gave a speech about cultural bridges, about unexpected friendships, about how a simple dish created a community in the cold heart of winter. But the moment I remember most was when Lola pulled me aside. "You know," she said, "Champorado is not really about chocolate, or rice, or tablia." "What is it about then?" I asked. "It is about taking care of someone, even when they don't ask, even when they don't know they need it." I nodded, but she wasn't finished. "You brought that spirit here, to Russia." She poked my arm. "You brought something warm to a cold place. That is your gift." I swallowed hard. "Do you think I honored the Philippines?" I asked. She held my face in her hands gently. "You didn't just honor us, you carried us." Later that evening, as snow fell softly outside and Filipino songs filled the hall, Lola handed me another package. "For next winter," she said. "More tablea, more memories." I took it with both hands, feeling the weight of everything she had given me, not just the chocolate, but the warmth, the kindness, the understanding that food can heal in ways words cannot. When I returned home, my neighbors were waiting. Someone had made a sign that said, "Welcome home. Is it Champorado time?" And for the first time, I realized something important. I had two homes now, one warm, one cold, and Champorado was the bridge between them. We cooked again that night, everyone together. The pot steamed, the hallway filled with the familiar smell, and as people shared stories, laughter, and warmth, I realized that Russia hadn't just fallen in love with Champorado. They had fallen in love with what it represented: connection, comfort, family, even in a place where winter lasts too long. And as I took my first spoonful, I whispered, "Thank you, Philippines." Because in the end, I didn't bring Champorado to Russia. I brought a piece of Filipino heart, and Russia embraced it with both hands.